Hey there, welcome back to the Poor Proles Almanac. This is Andy, and today I have a special guest, and I'm gonna, ask him how he's doing. How's the weather over there?
It's pretty good. It's really warm. It's like 60s. It's been raining a little bit, but yeah, it's been nice to have some warm weather despite it being, uh, you know, high 20s, low 20s down here in Mississippi.
Yeah, so could you introduce yourself now that we know you're nice and warm versus us in the frigid cold?
Yeah, so I go by M, and I'm a part of the group Lobelia Commons, which is like something of like an amorphous group that's based in New Orleans, Louisiana. And I've been a participant in that network for since it started at the beginning of the pandemic, so a couple of years now. Um, and particularly, I design and lay out the Earthbound Farmers Almanac, which is a project we've been doing for 2 years now, and has been taking up the majority of my time for the past month and a half.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. I have a copy of the Earthbound Almanac, the last one, somewhere around here. Do I have it? Can't find it right now. So yeah, it's an interesting concept in how it's put together. It's a collection of stories, how tos, very almanac type stuff in terms of seasonality and things to be aware of during the season, politics, decolonization. It's a really interesting collection of stuff that I think for us here at the Poor Proles Almanac really reflects a lot of the values and the areas that we kind of dip our toes into. So I want to ask a little bit, how has this been created? Is it just like an open forum for folks to propose content, or is it you have a vision of like there's X amount of this content, X amount of this content? Is there any real formula to that?
Maybe there could be more of a formula, and I think it's happening fairly organically. So we've been kind of figuring that out as we go. I think we kind of knew that if we made this form, this stuff would kind of just appear, which was true somewhat. I think we thought a lot of certain types of content would just kind of show up more than it actually ended up happening. So this year there was a mild panic at one point when we were like, wow, we don't really have that much specifically agriculture related content. But that we ended up solving that really quickly. But yeah, so I mean, basically the structure came out of Lobelia Commons, which, like I said before, is really amorphous, and like, people come and go, and it waxes and wanes. So it's not really like an official group per se. It's like whoever really shows up on a given day. And so we the more, I think maybe the Almanac crew is like maybe a more rigid group of people, just because in terms of like accountability, getting the thing published, it requires some kind of light structure. um,
Sure.
so yeah, we basically we want X amount of how to's, X amount of recipes, X amount of historical dates. And especially this being our second year, we had the experience of last year of being like, well, we had all these ideas and some didn't happen or some didn't work out. So like, how do we kind of troubleshoot from there? And it's super haphazard and like really slapdash a lot of the times. But yeah, I think it worked out really well this year. I think there's definitely some organizational stuff that we're going to have to continue to work on in terms of like redundancy and like repeating work that doesn't need to be repeated, and so on and so forth. But yeah, we've been getting a diverse variety of content, and hope in the future to continue to push that, to get from a variety of sources, a variety of backgrounds, different perspectives and stuff.
Yeah, I think like reading it, I won't even say reading. I'll back up a little bit. In thinking of when I saw your request for various types of writing, even somebody, I have this podcast. I think I'm fairly knowledgeable about what I'm talking about. I'm not perfect, but I feel like I know a decent amount. The idea of writing and presenting as like an arbiter of fact can be really intimidating. Once it's on paper, there's no turning back, so to speak. And I think that fear of not being perfect is a hindrance in getting voices that should be platformed to feel comfortable in doing that. And I think some of that organizational structure that you guys have right now lends itself to allowing people to feel more comfortable with that process of I'm just as qualified, whereas in a traditional like book or collection or something, there might be a lot of intimidation of like the authority of the editors or whoever it might be that are involved with this project. So I think that's really cool, and it's something I really appreciate. And I was able to look at it and feel as though it was more camaraderie than didactic, if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, so I think that's really cool and an interesting way to present the information, especially when it's paired with more of the, I don't want to say abstract, but more of the like flowery side of like creative writing and more of the philosophical conversations that take place within the collection. So I know you guys are just wrapped up for the upcoming book that you're releasing. Could you tell me a little bit about when that's going to be coming out, or how people can get it if they're interested?
Yeah, so hopefully should the funds all hit the bank account at the perfect time today, we should be starting the printing process, which involves then going on to pre-press and stuff like this. But uh, hopefully it should be middle of February. It should be completely printed. There currently is pre-orders on emergentgoods.com. Yeah, Emergent Goods does all of our like individual sales, which is really super super helpful. Big shout out to Emergent Goods for doing that for us because yeah, it's hard enough putting it out there, then doing the distribution. We get lots of like Instagram messages of how do we get it and stuff, and we were doing it like that for a little bit, and it was really difficult. So yeah, if individual orders can go through emergentgoods.com, and I mean, a big reason why we have done this is to like meet people and start making some connections and just like making friends and finding buddies, either whether or not you're like, we're specifically located in the Gulf South, but whether or not you're in this region or from afar, I think it relates. And uh, so we've been sending like, we'll send 20, 40 copies, something like that, based on however many a group thinks they can distribute. And if they want to distribute it and if they want to kick us some money, that's fine because it's just going back into the printing. But a lot of times people have just been using the money for fundraisers for their own, like if it's like, I don't know, there's like, a food sovereignty project, indigenous food sovereignty project, or like, some kind of like neighborhood effort, like whatever the thing is. We're totally psyched that people can use it for that purpose, and that's why we try to do the individual sales to be able to fund that side of it. So yeah, Emergent Goods, or you can reach out to us on like Twitter, Instagram, or at our email about distroing it.
That's awesome. It never occurred to me that you could, I guess, like pass on the leverage of your market to help other organizations in that way. But that's a really cool concept, and I totally get the overwhelmingness of dealing with sales because we sell like stickers and patches and stuff through like Instagram, and it's just like
Yeah.
even with our small, yeah, the amount that we're selling, it's just like insane. And I just, every time we get a new sticker, it's like a love hate relationship because I'm like, people are going to really like these. It's usually based on something people have like reached out to us about or we've brought up on the podcast. And then like in 2 hours, I'll get like 75 orders. And I'm just like, I am not a sales department. I am a person in my kitchen.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
totally.
So yeah, that's awesome. They've found some folks that are willing to work with you guys, and I do think it's really cool how you're leveraging the brand and the marketing that you've developed alongside some of these other projects. So you've got this book coming out, and it's full of really great content. I don't want to put you on the spot, but like, is there anything in particular about this copy that you're excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about the editorial note. It was written by a friend. It like really quickly, one of the people who's in our kind of like heavy scare quotes collective, and it was written really quickly after experiencing like wildfire, and I think after having had the year we had with like Ida and um, yeah, I mean, I think everyone knows the story. It's what we have called climate weirding. The it just really captured it. I remember reading it on, I think it was New Year's Day or New Year's, the day after New Year's, or something like that. Um, I remember reading it aloud, and the my friend and I who were reading it, we were just like really shook by it. So I'm very excited about that. But there's a lot of really good stuff in there. There's we have some correspondence with a feminist collective in the Mapuche struggle down in so-called Chile, and that's a great piece. We're super excited to be able to include that. Um, we have a piece on like traditional indigenous apprenticeship and like how that connects to like immortality and like patriarchy and or colonized patriarchy. So that's like a really exciting piece. There's a piece about imagining the Mississippi River system without levees. So it's a lot of stuff, and then there's like some really great plant guides that are in there, like illustrated guides about different like cool perennial crops, and the reference section's like a lot beefier. The historic dates are like a lot beefier. I'm just like really jazzed about how it came together this year. And I think that um, it like I think kind of like what you were saying earlier about how feeling like some sort of, I don't know, sense of being an authority on a matter. Like none of us really feel like an authority on it. The Lobelia Commons group basically officially or originally started with a bunch of people who wanted to like learn stuff together and do stuff together. I mean, none of us. I mean, we all had experience, but none of us were like experts by any means. And I think constantly having that ethos of like, I'm not an expert. My dad was like in insurance, so I don't know. It just wasn't handed
Yeah,
down.
I hear that. Yeah, it's one of those. I fully get that. I'm just a small little farmer. I'm not an expert.
Yeah,
But this platform has just grown more than I would have ever imagined. So I fully understand that weird feeling of, especially like it sounds like the book is, it's not becoming more. It's professionalizing without the voice of professionalism of authority,
totally.
and that comes through like the experience of having done it and the knowledge of how to do it, and not transitioning that into the way the information is being presented.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think it's a cool idea. I love what you guys are doing with it. I was super excited to hear that there's another one coming out, and I'm just glad to do my part and try to get folks to hear about what you guys are doing, because it's really important, and I think there's a lot for folks to take away from the work you're doing.
definitely. Yeah, and I mean, we're gonna try and work on it next year during the summer. Like this past year, we had like submissions were due, I think, at like the end of October, and at least down here in the deep south is this is my busiest time of the year. January, February is not when I want to be inside working on design. So we're gonna switch it up and do it in the summer next year. That way, it should be like totally out for like the calendar year. Which I think it's kind of funny that we've been making these almanacs and like releasing it like way late into the calendar year. but but yeah, so people should definitely reach out with ideas, and again, to really fly in the face of professionals. I mean, we got some submissions on like literally like in signal messages and stuff. Like not saying that not saying that we want all of our submissions to come through like that, but very seriously, like you don't have to have some kind of like degree or anything, you know, like um just yeah, feel open. I mean, worst case scenario is like we just like whatever, can't include it or something, but we'll try and respond, and yeah, at least be like buds or something. So yeah, and that deadline I think is July 31st of this year. So so it's kind of coming up.
Yeah, it sneaks up quick. So, what's the social media handle for the? Is there one specifically for the almanac?
No, the everything goes through the at Lobelia Commons.
Okay.
Yeah, for Instagram and Twitter. And God, thank God that there's only one social media handle.
No, I hear you. It takes a lot of time somehow, and you're like, why am I wasting all my time like on this stupid thing that I hate?
Yeah, we just
And
stopped doing it for months at a time because it's just
probably
too
a good life
much.
decision. Thanks so much for taking 15 minutes to chat with
Yeah,
us. I'm gonna plug it one more time. Go check out Lobelia Commons, the Earthbound Almanac. It's a great resource. Very cool, interesting content in a format you've probably never really seen it in. So, thanks again. This has been great.
appreciate it.